Alright, we're at the front of the truck now. I got it pulled in the other way, and we're going to start replacing some stuff. I'm going to throw in a new CV here because they've got RTV instead of a clamp, and new shocks because there's nothing left of those. Also going to put in a U-joint on the front drive shaft and the steering arm and the pitman arm in there because they're both junk. And some people have expressed concerns about the rust on my control arms here, but you know, they're solid steel arms. They're not hollow tubes, so even though they look like they came off the Titanic, they're not going to break. And the bushings, even though they look kind of crappy, they're not loose yet, and the ball joints aren't loose. At some point those will go bad and I'll have to replace them, but for now, I mean, it's not going to break. It's not going anywhere, so not going to worry about it. So let's get the I suppose get the axle out. Do that first because it's easy, and then go on from there. Alright, I finally got that stupid axle out of there. It should have been an easy job, just 6 bolts and the nut on front, and in theory you just drop it down and it's easy and it comes out, but it wasn't so much. The original axle has a round flange on it just like that, and you could bend it down to about here and it would still catch on that thing, and the axle itself would hit the sway bar end link that was here if you tried to go to the left, and if you tried to go down you just hit the control arm and it just wasn't coming out. I finally did manage to get it to turn the wheel just right and jack up and whatnot, and finally get it to drop down. And once I did, I realized that there's not enough clearance between the sway bar end link and the shock to actually slide the axle out the back here. So I did what I should have done from the beginning, and I just lopped that sway bar end link out of the way and pulled the axle out. Now the new axles actually have little recesses in the flange here, and about, you know, that much was holding me up, so these should be easy to get in and out if I ever need to take it out again. They should have done that from the factory, but you know, GM engineers. And I'm going ahead and working on the shocks here. Bolt came out surprisingly easy. Now I got to go under the hood and unbolt it from the top. Hopefully that will be easy as well. Just that bolt right there, and then I should be able to get the shock to drop out of it and throw the new shock in. I'll throw the new axle in, and then put that sway bar end link back on, or a new one, which I have. And then I think we'll go to the other side and try that, and then fight with the pitman arm and idler arm. See if we can get those done. Alright, I got the new shock in. Of course the bolts had to be 100 miles longer than they really needed to be, but whatever, it's in. And I've got the new axle set in, and hopefully I can show you what the problem I was having before. You can see how that clears there, but if you've got all the way around without that notch, it makes it a lot harder to get it clear of that. So I like these aftermarket axles so much better than stock. But we're going to go ahead and throw that in, tighten up the bolts, and then put our new sway bar end link in. Make sure we use a fair amount of anti-seize on just about everything because I hate rust. And tighten that nut up, and this side should be done. Alright, this side's done. New shock, new CV, or half shaft, and a new sway bar end link. I still got to look up the torque spec on that and torque it down, but other than that, this side's done. I can move on the other side, put the shock, and I'll put a new end link in there while I'm there, but I'm not going to touch the axle because it didn't have a bunch of goo trying to seal it up. So I think the other axle's alright. I mean, come on, really? You thought this was going to work? I tell you, if you couldn't fix it with something in a tube, something gooey, he wasn't going to use it. I mean, you could afford the Z71 stickers. If you look at it just right, you can see the application instructions. By the way, this isn't, I'm pretty sure this isn't a Z71. It doesn't have the skid plate underneath. The stickers are obviously not factory, and it had Continental shocks on it, so I'm thinking it's not a Z71. I can't read the glove box codes, but I don't know, maybe I'll clean it off and look, but I'm pretty sure not a Z71. Well, we're just about at the home stretch with this truck. I got my new idler arm in. It's pretty simple. You just take that nut off, 22 mil. Then you come in from the side, from the outside, from the wheel well with a pickle fork and knock it loose. And then there's 2 bolts on the frame that hold it all together. Right up there. And the whole thing pops out and bolts back in. So that wasn't too bad. Now we get to go to the fun part. I don't know how well you can see it, but there's a pitman arm in there, and that is still loose. So to take that out, I'm going to have to remove the steering rack, or the steering box, because there's a nut on there I have to get to, and I have to put a puller on there as well, and that's just not going to happen with this massive cross member in the way. So I'm going to have to pull it out. I suppose maybe I could unbolt it and wiggle it around, but that just sounds like a lot more work than what it's worth crawling around under the truck. So we're just going to pull it. I think that'll make life easier. Hopefully the lines down there will come off without breaking. I don't know, but we're going to give her a shot and see what happens. Well, I haven't even started doing anything yet, and I can already see a problem. I don't know how well it'll show up on camera, but somebody's been on that line and rounded off the nut on it, of course. Oh, this truck is just turning into a nightmare. I haven't really tried to get it off yet, but I'm sure it'll be fun. Same thing happened with the rear differential. I went to check the fluid because the pinion seal was leaking a little bit, and I wasn't going to mess with it. I wasn't going to fix it. I was just going to top off the fluid, and I go to take out the fuel plug, and that's stripped out. Like, how do you do that? It's a square. But no, they rounded it off, so yeah, good times. Hopefully I can get on that with something and turn it, but we'll see. Alright, well, it sort of worked. I got the pressure line off without actually breaking anything. Amazingly, because that's the one that was rounded off, but the other one, unfortunately, that was locked in there too good, and it just started to twist, so I just cut it off. Luckily, that's the return line, so it's not under a huge amount of pressure. So I should be able to just use rubber and a hose clamp there, just like it is stock, and then put that back together. And I got the bolt out, little pinch bolt. I was kind of worried about that, but it came loose, so now we can pop it off, pop the pitman arm off the center link there. And to do that, I've already got the nut off. I'm just going to take a pickle fork and run it in the side here, right up through there, and I should be able to pop that loose. And I'll use my new pickle fork set. After I was working on the Ranger there and I didn't have a good pickle fork, I went ahead and I picked up a nice set of them, so I'll pull one of those out, probably this one. That'll probably do us pretty good. That's what I used on the other side, and we'll pound that in, knock that out, and then I can take the 3 bolts off of here, and I should be able to drop the steering box out. Alright, I managed to knock that loose. Those pickle forks are awesome. So that's ready to go, and I've also gone ahead and gnawed myself a little hole here in that fender well so I can get to that bolt. I'm sure you're supposed to just gently pry that back and put a wrench on it and carefully bend it back when you're done, but I'm not, I don't care. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do what GM should have done from the factory and put a hole in it. So I've broken those bolts loose. Now I just got to zing them out, and that should be the last thing holding in that steering box, and then we can get it out of here and get that pitman arm off, hopefully. I wonder what kind of adventure that's going to be. Success! The steering box is out, and you can see a little bit better now how bad that is. Not good. So that now that we got it out, we're going to have to go ahead and get an impact on that nut. See if we can get that out of there, and then I'll have to put a puller on here, and hopefully this arm here will come off. One can only hope, but it's a lot easier out of the truck than it will be in. So I'm glad I took the little extra effort to pull it out. Alright, I got my pitman arm off and replaced. I ended up having to clamp this in a vise and take my breaker bar, take that nut off, and then put my puller on, and I put the breaker bar on it and tightened it down as hard as I could, and that wasn't enough, and I ended up having to use a 6-foot cheater pipe on my puller to actually get it off. But it held up well and it came off. Puller is the place you really don't want to cheap out, because the Chinesian ones will break. So I got this KD 2289 made in USA puller, and that held up to it well. I was going to leave a link to an Amazon so you could buy it, but I found the picture of this, but the reviews said they sent you some cheap Taiwanese pile of crap that would bend and break. So no link, you'll have to search it up and try to find the actual tool. I think I got this one at Napa, but you know, a good actual puller is what you need, because the cheap Chinese ones will break on you. So I guess all there is left to do now is put it back in, and the steering will be done. Alright, the new pitman arm is on, the steering box is back in, fluid's all topped off, lines are put back where they need to be, and she works. That's all done. So now we have to go to the final piece, which is back here. Replace that U-joint, the final thing before we can take her out on the road. I think there's some more little fiddly things I gotta do to it, but we can drive it after I get this done. New U-joint installed. Now these are fun. You got to melt out the plastic, and yeah, they were a pain, and I didn't film any of it. But we'll go ahead and throw this in the truck. This should be the last piece, and we can kind of drive it around a little bit. There's still a few little things like this wandering headlight, but minor issues. So we'll throw that in and slap them better tires on and take it for a spin, I think. Alright, I got the drive shaft in. I got different wheels on it here. I got the steel rims because I hate aluminum rims. And she's pretty much all done. Let's go take her for a bit of a spin. Still got to fix that door, but that ain't the end of the world, I guess. Yeah. Might need to clean the windshield a bit. No big deal. Yeah. Steers fine. Seems to run okay. Exhaust ain't too noisy. I like it. Brakes work. They should after all the work I did. Ain't quite got the same turning radius as, say, my car, but I suppose that's to be expected. Yeah, most everything works, I think. All my gauges seem to be doing something. Yeah. Well, I don't think my radio's working. Oh well, minor issues. Fix that at some point. All the lights work. That's all ready to go. I've got, as you can see, a box full of tie rods here. I went ahead and I bought those just in case I needed them. Didn't end up needing them, so we're gonna throw them in when they go bad eventually on these dirt roads. It'll probably be sooner rather than later, but yeah, I think it'll work. It ain't pretty, but she goes down the road finally.